someone like you, who grew up in a single-parent household and poor, is naturally at the very end of the line. Typically, isn't it a bit narrow-minded for someone who's mostly idle to be unable to wait for just about 4 hours or so?
I had some errands to run at the bank, and there, I ran into a former classmate who had always looked down on me. What's more, the teller at the bank today was that very ex-classmate. Despite having taken my number ticket, my number was skipped over. I asked him repeatedly when my turn would be, but he kept dodging the question, and in the end, I wasn't called until 4 hours later. I couldn't resist making a phone call due to my inability to wait any longer. And my ex-classmate didn't know who received it, and after that, he went through hell. My name is Kyle Johnson. I was raised in what you'd call a single-parent family, just me and my mom. The reason our family became a single-parent household was that my dad passed away due to an illness when I was in preschool. My mom, who had been a stay-at-home mom until then, took a job to make our lives and to raise me, turning into quite the career woman. I wanted to help out with our finances too, but as an elementary school kid, there wasn't much I could do. So I thought I'd help out with household chores instead. I'll do the cooking and laundry, I said to my mom, and I'll never forget the look on her face at the time. Hey, what's this little one talking about? Her eyes seemed to say. At first, she said no, claiming it was too dangerous because of the fire and knives, but after I insisted on doing it anyway, she finally gave in, and I was allowed to take on the household chores. But of course, there was no way a kid in elementary school could handle all the chores, and my mom knew that too. So, I started with bathroom cleaning and other chores like that. And when it came to cooking or using knives and fire, I always helped accompanied by my mom. The deal was that I would never do those things alone while I was in elementary school. As time went by, I gradually learned to cook. And by the time I entered middle school, I was finally allowed to cook on my own, truly taking on all the household chores. But I deeply felt the difficulty of housework. I have memories of respecting the people who do this chores every day. Even as a child, growing up like this, I didn't play with friends much after school. I wanted to help my mom more than I wanted to play. So I often declined invitations, leading to somewhat of an isolation in my class. Especially, a classmate back then, Ken Morrison, always ridiculed me.
Kyle, my mommy told me you're from a single-parent family, ho.
Yay, that's right. Single-parent families never lead to a good life, my mommy said. He said smugly. So I told him, you should stop calling her mommy. We're in elementary school, you know. That got Ken all riled up. From then on, Ken started to pick on me even more. If I was using a short pencil, he'd say, because you're from a single-parent family, you can't even get a new pencil, huh? And if my sweater was slightly unraveled, hey, can't afford a new one. Even though my pencil was short length, it was still usable, and my sweater just had a bit of yarn sticking out because it got caught on something. Nonetheless, finding such minor things, Ken had been mocking me, saying it's because I come from a single-parent household. I would respond with it's still usable, or it's just a little unraveled, but I'd just get laughed off with yeah, because you're poor from that single-parent household. It felt like Ken had just learned the phrase single-parent family and wanted to say it just for the sake of saying it. And Ken's attitude didn't change even in middle school, greeting me in the hallways with hey, single-parent Kyle. By then, I had started to ignore him. It was too much trouble to engage. Instead, someone else stood up for me, yelling, Ken, enough is enough. That was one of my classmates, Hannah Rivera. I met Hannah when I was pondering over what to make for dinner tonight, while picking out groceries at the supermarket, and she happened to be shopping there too. In my shopping basket were lots of vegetables and other ingredients, while Hannah was there just to buy snacks.
Running errands. You're on top of things, huh?
No, I'm thinking of what to make for dinner tonight and maybe meal prep.
Meal prep.
She seemed to have never even heard of it, and her robotic way of speaking made me laugh. It's just my mom and me at home. She's always busy with work, so I do all the household chores.
Wow. So you cook too?
Of course.
Kyle, you're amazing. I don't do anything.
Well, I think that's normal. We're still in middle school, after all. Laughing at that, Hannah gave me a wry smile, not sure how to react. I'm used to responses like that, so I added, "Well, I do it because I like it." After that, Hannah started to look out for me more, saying things like, "Kyle, I've recently started studying cooking too." And when Ken would bother me, she'd stand up for me even more fiercely, saying, "Even if Kyle comes from a single-parent family, he's working hard. I don't want to hear such things from someone like you. If you have a complaint, try working harder than Kyle before you say anything." Every time, I would thank Hannah because I didn't want to neglect my studies and give anyone a chance to say her mother didn't raise him right. I tried my best to do well in school too. Whenever I didn't understand something, I would ask people, classmates, or teachers for help. Living like this, 3 years flew by, and graduation came. Hannah called me aside and confessed something I never expected. "Having watched you up close, working hard on cooking, studying, and cleaning, I thought you were an incredible person. And so I've come to like you, Kyle, for all that hard work. Would you go out with me? I've always liked you too, Hannah. You always stood up for me and helped me. Please, let's be together." I responded honestly, and we became a couple. Years passed since our middle school graduation, and now in my 30s, I had some business at my main bank, Edgewood Bank. Just for the record, my number was 36, and the current number being called at the counter was 33. Just about 3 more people to go. I thought I'd be called soon, so I decided to sit and wait. And then an hour of waiting was about to pass. I thought it was odd that the person with number 35 was taking an unusually long time. But then again, it's a bank dealing with money matters, so it seemed understandable that it might take some time. During the wait, I worked on my laptop, replying to work emails, playing games on my smartphone, checking social media, watching videos to pass the time. Finally, the person with number 35 left the counter. Oh, finally my turn. I tucked away my phone and held onto my number tag, ready to be called at any moment, when unexpectedly, the following announcement came on. "We will be serving out of turn. Number 37, please come forward." To my surprise, the call screen also displayed number 37. Huh? I was taken aback, watching as the person with number 37 went to the counter. Maybe he or she was in a hurry. That could explain why he or she asked to be called ahead. Yep, sounds about right. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense to skip numbers. Trying to convince myself, I sit back down. However, there was one thing worrying me. When I picked up my number tag, I noticed the name of today's teller was Ken Morrison written on it. Seeing the name, I remembered a former classmate with that name, and glancing at the teller's face, it was indeed him. I almost called out Ken. In surprise, I hadn't seen Ken since graduating from middle school, but he looked much like he did back then. He ended up working at this bank. I also didn't expect to be at this branch. That aside, Ken was the one who used to constantly call me the son from a single-parent family. Thinking he might start up again if he recognized me, I quietly moved away, hoping to avoid eye contact. When it was my turn at the counter, I hoped to finish without any unnecessary comments. I couldn't believe he was still harassing me even at this point. But then again, it's been years since we graduated. And this was his workplace after all. It seemed unlikely he'd do such a thing at work. Yet, I still hadn't been called. Next, number 38 was called. Ken looked calm, as if nothing was out of the ordinary, continuing his work. Maybe I'll be called next, I thought, pulling out my smartphone again. But I wasn't called. My number, 36, hadn't been called. The counter was now displaying number 60. Of course, I went to the counter to ask, "Excuse me, I'm number 36, but I haven't been called yet." I tried speaking to Ken, the teller, but without even looking up. He just said, "Yes, you'll be called soon. We're serving out of turn." But the next to be called is number 45, and I'm 36. "Yes, number 45, please come to the counter." My plea was elegantly ignored. I honestly wondered if this was acceptable behavior for a bank teller. Thinking maybe Ken was the problem, I approached another attendant and mentioned my number had been skipped. But all I got was "Please wait, or I'll let the teller know." I couldn't help but deliver a punchline. No one else seemed to be going to address this. Please forgive my inner snark. By this point, I had been at the bank for nearly 2 hours. Now, it seemed all I could do was wait, ready to be called at any moment. So, I settled in to wait once more, working on my laptop while keeping an eye on the counter. As the bank's closing time of 3 p.m. approached, I had been at Edgewood Bank for about 4 hours. Eventually, without my number ever being called, I heard the rattling sound of things being put away. When I looked toward the counter, to my surprise, they were starting to clean up. "Hey!" I couldn't help but raise my voice in shock, hurriedly packing up my laptop and rushing to the counter where Ken was. "Hey, I haven't been called yet." When I showed Ken my number tag, he snorted with laughter. "Oh, is that so? I had planned to call a poor folk from a single-parent household at the very last, but I completely forgot." He chuckled. So, he knew it was me and did this on purpose. I was really ticked off and retorted, "You said you'd call me next when I asked you several times." But he just said back to me, "I said I thought I could call you next, not that I would."
Kyle, someone like you, who grew up in a single-parent household and poor, is naturally at the very end of the line. This time ain't gonna be no big deal anyway, right? It's just a matter of waiting, so chill. Besides, isn't it a bit narrow-minded be unable to wait for just about 4 hours or so? The bank isn't running on charity, you know.
I was stunned by Ken's audacity, knowing it was me, and just because my family is a single-parent household. He assumed we were poor, made me wait 4 hours without an apology. And now, he's saying I'm narrow-minded for not being able to wait. I've made up my mind. Fine, that's enough. I'll take care of you now if you want. But it's past 3 o'clock, so you'll need to come back tomorrow or later." Ken said, laughing as if he found the whole situation hilarious. Disappointed in Edgewood Bank for allowing someone like him to be a teller, I left without saying another word and made a phone call. The next day, the branch manager of Edgewood Bank was at my doorstep.
"Mr. Johnson, I sincerely apologize just like this. So could you please reconsider canceling your account with our bank?"
"Sorry, but I've made up my mind."
"If you could just..."
The branch manager was quite persistent, but my mind hadn't changed. The person I had called the day before was the branch manager of the bank I visited. I had informed him that I wanted to close my account, having been their customer for many years. The branch manager nearly screamed, "Please, Mr. Johnson, why after all these years?" He lamented, but I only replied, "After the unacceptable service I received at your counter, I can no longer trust your bank, and hung up. I don't know if the bank had discussed it internally, but that night the branch manager contacted me again, asking to speak the next morning. Then indeed, he showed up at my house. The branch manager, who seemed to have heard everything that happened yesterday, couldn't stop sweating from the moment he arrived, wiping his sweat with a tissue multiple times.
Our teller did something unforgivable. Ken was recently transferred to our branch, so he didn't know you, Mr. Johnson. We'll fire Ken. Ken had complaints about his attitude and caused problems at his previous branch too. We'll definitely fire him. Yes, he'll be dismissed and terminated immediately today.
The branch manager launched into it like a whirlwind. We'll make sure Ken never appears before you again. And if there's anything else we can do for you, we'll take care of it for sure. So please just don't cancel. Please. I beg you. And he was ready to start apologizing right there at the doorstep. So I decided to respond calmly. I didn't want an apology at my doorstep. It's not your fault, you weren't there. But the person responsible hasn't come to apologize, and I don't feel any sincerity.
Then I'll make Ken come and apologize.
Normally, shouldn't he have been the first to come? Everyone saw his behavior towards me yesterday. It's unacceptable, not just as a bank employee, but as a professional.
That is, I did tell him to accompany me.
The branch manager looked averting my gaze. Knowing Ken, he probably said something like, "There's no way I'm apologizing to Kyle," and ran off.
Kyle.
When I turned around, there was Hannah. Hannah and I had been together since graduating from middle school, and after finishing college, we started living together.
Fairway Bank is willing to accept our entire deposit under the conditions you set. They said they're ready to proceed with the paperwork right away.
All right, thanks. So, as you hear that, sir, I'm afraid Fairway Bank is offering us a better deal for our deposits. I cannot revoke the cancellation of our account from your bank. Please proceed with a closure. With that, the branch manager finally seemed to accept defeat, his shoulders slumping as he walked away. He seemed to have aged 20 years in an instant, though it might just be because he was already graying. Acting swiftly, Hannah and I headed to Fairway Bank. I wonder if we did wrong by the branch manager of Edgewood Bank. I mused, but Hannah was firm, no way. The worst one here is Ken, but the bank itself is to blame for condoning his behavior. And Ken didn't even come to apologize. He's unbelievable, hasn't changed since middle school. Hannah was more upset about yesterday's incident and Ken than I was. I've always admired this about Hannah. She hasn't changed at all. Well, it's over with Edgewood Bank now, and we won't have to deal with them anymore. Let's just move on. Maybe you can move on, Kyle, but I can't. If I see Ken, I won't let him off. Hannah said, mockingly practicing her pinches. I wish she could be a bit more gentle. And just as we arrived at Fairway Bank, we were in for a surprise when we saw who was there. Ken. Why are you here? There stood Ken, wearing a suit that appeared somewhat dirty. Upon spotting us, he rushed over with incredible speed, shouting, "Kyle, because of you."
Hey, why would someone like you, a broke person, have $50 million deposited in our bank in the first place, and now you're moving it to another bank? What the hell are you thinking?
You see, I'm moving banks because of your terrible attitude yesterday.
What? Most single-parent upbringing like yours usually ends up being poor, right? That $50 million must be dirty money anyway. How could someone like you even come by that kind of money?
It's all clean money. I run a company with Hannah now, and that's how we've earned it. Hannah, clearly annoyed by Ken's outburst, added, "You wouldn't know, but our company is really taking off. It's called Helpy Bunny."
Helpy Bunny. Isn't that the home cleaning service I've seen advertised on TV commercials recently?
Yay, that's my company. In fact, Hannah and I run a company that primarily offers home cleaning services. Growing up in a single-parent household and being responsible for household chores, I was acutely aware of how challenging it could be. That's why, after graduating from college, Hannah and I started this company. The business took off, and now my bank account holds $50 million. Ken got it. Kyle isn't Pooh anymore. And it's because you looked down on Kyle and acted that way that you got fired from the bank. You're still stuck in the past, and that's why this happened to you. Hannah said, now looking down on Ken. He fell apart right there on the spot. After that, we successfully switched our main banking to Fairway Bank. The branch manager of Fairway Bank was overjoyed, welcoming us warmly. When we entered the meeting room, there was a banner saying, "Welcome, Mr. Kyle Johnson." And ultimately, the CEO of Fairway Bank came to personally thank us, saying, "Thank you for choosing our bank. We will follow you for life, sir." I vividly remember feeling like I was going to get burned by the vast difference in how both Edgewood Bank and Fairway Bank handle things. Though receiving a somewhat heavy statement of "we will follow you for life," I felt good about Fairway Bank and its branch, and I started to look forward to doing business with them. Actually, Ken once came to my house saying, "I apologize for everything. Please ask the branch manager to take back my firing." But I firmly replied, "It's too late for apologies now." Then, "Can you hire me at your company?" We were classmates, right? When he tried to plead further, Hannah shut him down, saying, "Too late for that, you turncoat. Don't you dare come here again." He was chased off by her and just ran away. I've heard rumors about Ken since then. He tried to find employment at another bank, but the story of his unbelievable customer service had spread among banks, and he couldn't get hired anywhere. This led him to a self-destructive spiral of drinking. Apparently, Ken even had a fiancée, who was the daughter of a high-ranking officer at Edgewood Bank. Had they married, Ken might have made a career there, but that was no longer possible. Currently, he's said to be missing, not having returned to his hometown, despite it being a result of his own actions. I couldn't help but feel a bit of sympathy for him. Hannah and I remained busy running our company, Helpy Bunny, offering two types of services: an affordable Easy Access course for regular households, and a pricier luxury course with enhanced services. Considering a new course that would fall in between these two, I discussed it with Hannah.
That sounds good. Every household has different financial situations and needs.
Maybe even a custom course could work, suggested by Hannah. Seemed like a good idea, especially now that we had the financial means to explore new customer segments. We conducted surveys among our employees and on social media to gather feedback, and I stumbled upon a certain online news article titled, "The Reality of Young Carers." It detailed how young carers, besides caregiving, are also burdened with household chores, leaving them no time for themselves. I hadn't considered the double burden of caregiving and housework. Despite knowing how tough just the housework was from my own childhood. But these kids known as young carers are going through so much every day, with both housework and caregiving. I remember how tough it was just doing housework every day, with no time to hang out with friends. That's when I came up. If families with young carers could use our home cleaning services, it might at least reduce their burden of housework, setting the price even lower than our Easy Access course, to the point where it could almost be considered volunteer work. Might make it more accessible for families without becoming a financial burden. I shared this idea with Hannah, wondering what she thought about such a course. I came up with this course idea. What do you think?
That sounds amazing. It fits perfectly with the current social climate, and I'm sure it'll be a hit.
With Hannah's seal of approval, I presented the idea to our employees, and the response was unanimously positive. "If we can help the young ones, count me in," said veteran employee Smith, leading the charge with encouraging words like, "For young students, studying and playing are their jobs too. They shouldn't miss out on their youth." Feeling the incredible energy from our team, I decided to go ahead and create this course. We named this service tailored for families with young carers the Helper Course and launched it as a new offering from our company. As expected, it was a massive hit, drawing requests from numerous families asking if we could ask your service. The attention it garnered even led to media interviews from TV and magazines, further increasing the demand for our company's services. To meet the growing need for our services, I found myself personally visiting clients' homes to provide cleaning services, especially since there's a significant demand for male staff services. Being on the front lines and receiving heartfelt thanks from the clients made me feel truly fulfilled and reaffirmed the value of our work. As the company continued to grow, with an increasing number of male staff joining our ranks, we experienced busy yet fulfilling days. Today, after months of nonstop work, Hannah and I managed to take a break for a hot spring vacation. Additionally, this hotel is of a decent standard, so I also had an ulterior motive of using the behavior of the employees as a reference, always looking to absorb anything that can improve our business. We're keen on implementing the best practices we encounter. Just so you know, amidst our hectic schedule, Hannah and I get married. We had been living together since graduating from college, and while I was fully engrossed in managing the business, Hannah supported me every step of the way. We were both busy with work, so marriage was put on the back burner. The incident with Ken prompted us to finally make it official. Hannah has always been there for me since we met in middle school, defending and supporting me more fiercely than anyone else. It made me realize I couldn't let someone so special go. "Hannah, I know it's late, but shall we get married?" To which she replied with a smile, "It really is about time, but I'm happy you asked. I'll always be here to protect you, Kyle." Hannah has always protected me, and I hope to do the same for her, supporting each other along the way.
Being able to relax like this is a reward for all the hard work, isn't it?
Absolutely. Thank you for everything, Hannah.
That's my line, Kyle. Thanks for your hard work.
We appreciated each other's efforts and commitment.
It would be great if we could grow the company even more. Then fewer people would call you the poor kid from a single-parent family.
The one who said that the most is now missing in action.
It's his own doing. Where you come from doesn't determine the outcome of your efforts.
Indeed, as Hannah said, one's family background doesn't dictate their ability to achieve success. Despite not being raised in a normal family with both parents around, I managed to graduate from college, start a company, and lead it to success through my own efforts. It all comes down to personal endeavor, which I've experienced firsthand. The results of hard work will always benefit oneself. I hope to continue working hard, achieving great results alongside Hannah and our employees.